Week 12 of the NFL is upon us. Starting, and for the happy Thanksgiving for all those who are living in the States and all those across the world who are Americans and can't return home and serving our country. Thanksgiving is upon us, which means week 12 of the NFL is here, which means Madden is back at 500 at 6-6. Got last week's game, Philly versus Seattle, right? And this week we have what I believe is the game of the week against two AFC West rivals fighting for dominance in the West. You have the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. Believe this is going to be a hard-fought matchup. Denver defending Super Bowl champions taking on those pesky Chiefs from Kansas City. Kansas City last week, they had a rare loss at home and they're ready to come back swinging. They were in first place due to a tiebreaker over Oakland in the West, but since they lost and Oakland went to Mexico City and walked away with a win, they fell back to second place. But it was these Denver Broncos who had a bye last week. All they do is sit back and relax, and they saw an opportunity. These two teams, Kansas City and Denver, will most likely clinch the both wild cards in the AFC, but that's not a guarantee, especially how Miami has been playing as of late and slowly creeping up in the wild card standings. But I feel this is going to be a good old slobber knocker between these two teams. I mean, Denver has controlled the West for, the last 5 years. And Kansas City has been right there in their side for at least 3 of those years, ever since Andy Reid came to Kansas City. It looked like last year Kansas City starting the season 1-5. Andy Reid, what did you do? You just had this team in the playoffs. You gave up the biggest comeback, or second biggest comeback, whatever, in NFL history in the wild card game against the Colts the year prior. You come in, second year in Kansas City, you go 1-5, and what happens? You rolled off 10 straight wins, clinched the wild card spot, and got your first playoff victory since the mid and early 90s. So, I mean, these Chiefs, it's their defense that carries them more or less. Just like these Broncos, it's their defense. Defense. So I'm expecting a low-scoring game. Well, at least in the mid to small 20s. For sure, but let's talk about Thanksgiving a little bit. The birthplace of Thursday football. I mean, if it wasn't for Thanksgiving, there would be no Thursday night football. Because before the NFL decided to say, hey, let's have a football game on Thursday night, let's say every week of the NFL season, there was only one time a year that Thursday meant something. And that was always the fourth Thursday in November when America celebrated Thanksgiving. And for many years, you had two teams that played on Thanksgiving no matter what. One makes sense, the other questionable, but there's tradition behind it. But the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys, for years, for almost half a century, if that, have played on Thanksgiving. And this year is no different. We have Detroit. Detroit always plays the early game, and Dallas plays the late game. And for, I almost want to say for the past 10 years now, Yeah, it's been 10 years since we have had a third primetime game on Thanksgiving. For it flexed between who's played that late game. It started at the NFL Network had held it and then has been switched over to NBC since 2012. But otherwise, you've had Dallas and Detroit, just traditions. And those two teams started playing on Thanksgiving permanently, I believe, by 1970. Let's see, yes. Woo! That was quick. But Thanksgiving and football go together like turkey and stuffing, or mashed potatoes and gravy, or a pick six and a celebration, something like that. But it's almost been a time-honored tradition. I mean, you have Thanksgiving dinner, you have the parades, and then you sit back, relax, and watch some NFL football, and in some cases, some college football. I mean, this is almost the best time of the year that most people used to look for, of so much football and so much football that mattered. Because it was the one time of the year you had football on Thursdays. The one time of the year, more or less, you had college football on Fridays, and college football that mattered, rivalry week, the final major week in college football, rivalry week, this same weekend. The year's wrapping up, college football's wrapping up, but the NFL, it's just getting hot. These are the games that matter the most. We already have seen teams that slightly have separated, but this is the starting point of games that matter. When you win, you're in. If you lose, well, you're kind of screwed. But let's look back at some Thanksgiving football. I mean, Detroit, for the last 10 years, people were saying, why should Detroit play on Thanksgiving? They always lose. There was a stretch from 2004 to 2012. Detroit Lions, 9 years in a row lost. They lost. They did not win, and they looked terrible and humiliating on Thanksgiving. And people were like, it's time to remove Detroit from football, Thanksgiving football. But you know what? I'm a traditional guy. They started it. You know what? Sooner or later they'll get better. And you know what? Since 2013, Detroit hasn't lost. 2013, 2014, 2015, they won 3 straight on Thanksgiving, and you know what? Good for them. To get back that confidence of winning on Thanksgiving. Dallas, well, they lost last year and lost the year before that, but they won in 2013. Dallas is usually back and forth, and before, with the TV rights and so forth, Detroit, if Detroit's plays an NFC team, that means Dallas has to play an AFC team, and vice versa every other year. But in the last 2-3 years, it's been, hey, Detroit, you play a divisional rival, and Dallas, you play a divisional rival. And a look now at how the Broncos line up defensively. I love watching TJ Ward play. Whether it's covering in the deep zones or blitzing, this man makes plays. Excuse me for a second. But anyways. And the Broncos go to a nickel set on 3rd down. Yeah, they've got an extra DB out there. Anyways, Detroit and Dallas, they've been playing on Thanksgiving for 40 years or so. And it's been back and forth, so forth. And actually, Detroit and Green Bay, they used to play on Thanksgiving every year. That was a tradition. That was the rivalry. And it was always in Detroit. And Detroit always had the better hand, it seemed like. And, later, since the 90s and early in 2000s, Green Bay flipped that around, but so on and so forth. But, Thursday used to mean something. Thursday and Thanksgiving used to mean something. That was the only time of the year that you got to see football on Thursday. And now with Thursday night football, NFL and their greedy behinds who say they care about safety, but in all truth and honesty, they don't. Let's be honest. They just want money. I do care about player safety, and I don't care for Thursday night football. I really don't, especially now that they have color rush. It's like, what's the point? They look ugly. Lately, half the teams just wear all white anyways. So Thursday used to mean something, and now it's oversaturated. But I still like Thanksgiving. Still love it. Now you get 3 football games. Usually, like this year, you have who's playing this year? You have Dallas versus Washington. Big divisional rivalry right there, and huge divisional playoffs at stake. Same thing with Detroit and Minnesota. Divisions on the line, more or less. Detroit with a head-to-head win against Minnesota, they can get that get a 2-game advantage with a win against Minnesota. And then the primetime game, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis. I mean, if the Colts were good, well, the Colts and Steelers, they're about in the same boat right now. But still, that'll be a good game. But I have heard that Andrew Luck, with a concussion, he will not play in that game. So that means we will see the Wisconsin great, not so great, and former Green Bay Packer backup, Scott Tolzien, starter in the center for his, I think third or fourth career start. And I don't like the odds for him. I mean, I liked Scott Tolzien. I thought he's a decent guy. He's a good quarterback, but he's not an NFL starting worthy quarterback. I mean, he's still looking for, those things here and there, but I'm happy for him. He went to Wisconsin. Of course, I'm going to like and love him, but he's just not quite there, and you never know. Maybe he'll get his first career win. But get to that later. But we move on. Thanksgiving's going to be fun. 3 great games. Lots of on the line. Lots of stuff's on the line. But speaking on the line, one of the big stories this past week, week 11, NFL kickers. It was last year the NFL decided to move back the extra point, the point after touchdown, because they felt 17, let's see, 10, that's 12 plus 7, a 19-yard field goal attempt is 2 chip shot, 2 gimme, and they wanted a little more spice to the game. So they decided to put the ball at the 15-yard line. So you add 10 because of the end zone, and then 7, because usually kickers stand about, the placeholder stands about 7 yards deep from the snapper. So that's already 15, that's 25, that's a 32-yard field goal, more or less, 33-yard field goal attempt. So it's a little difficulty. And I've seen kickers kick from the right hash and from the left hash. It's like, why not just kick it down the middle? Maybe if it's a little windy and that, okay, one or the other. But why?
That's only going to help your defense.
Yeah,
but we have seen now, we've seen kickers miss, hit the goalpost, little to the left, little to the right, and even some blocks now. Speaking of blocks, there's one, and oh my goodness. So right now, Denver's up because of a pick six and a block punt. Might have to take some notes. But this past Sunday, there were 12 missed extra points. Now, granted, 2 or 3 of them were blocked. And with that little extra room and time and trajectory, it's easier for the defense to block extra points. And it puts a lot of pressure on the kickers now. I mean, Minnesota cut their kicker, Blair Walsh. Last year in the playoffs, he missed a chip shot field goal that would have won the game and took him to the divisional round of the playoffs. But he shanked it, a chip shot, he shanked it. And Minnesota loses to Seattle because Seattle somehow, some way, shape, or form, except in Super Bowl 49, finds a way to win. And he shanks it. Okay. His rookie year, he made, I think he had like 5 50-plus yard field goals that he did not miss. He was one of the most accurate, prestigious kickers in the NFL. And he was a rookie then. And now he went downhill. He missed more extra points this year, and the Vikings say, it's time to cut him. And, even moving that extra point back, some of the elite kickers now, day and age. I mean, the Packers, Mason Crosby earlier this year, he missed his first extra point ever when it was moved back. But his first one that he missed there was a penalty, so it was 5 more yards deeper, so it was a 38-yard field goal attempt. But he didn't miss a regular 33, 32-yarder. But the names of Adam Vinatieri, he missed a field goal earlier on Sunday. And the New England's new kicker, I forget the guy's name, I'm sorry, but he missed an extra point. And it's like these guys are almost 10 for 10 when it comes to extra points. And it's like now they're missing. Now it's like a free thrower at the line who's like 99.9%. You can put blindfold on him. The crowd can be blowing, pressing down on blowhorns, whatever, and the guy would still make it. And the one time, someone sneezed and they missed. It happens. But 12 extra points were missed this past Sunday when, breaking the record of 10 that stood for 46 years. That's still saying something. And 46 years ago, the extra point was placed at the 2. And it was only a 17, 19-yard field goal then. So, I mean, that's a record that I think most people thought would stand.
Third down here for the offense after the incomplete pass.
So, now there's a lot of pressure on kickers. And I think that's a good and bad thing. Because, I mean, they took all the pressure away from kickers when they decided to change overtime rules. When they say, hey, when this 135-pound soaking wet guy can trot on the field in overtime, first possession, and kick a 35-yard field goal to win it, and the other team doesn't touch the ball at all, and yay type thing. They, but I feel like now there's plenty of pressure and there's prizes on kickers. And I mean, not saying there wasn't any prize on kickers or having a valid kicker. I mean, you've always had that. If you can't have a kicker that makes field goals and stuff like that, you're screwed. You're not going to make it. But 12 missed extra points. And I don't know what else to say. I mean, I love kickers. I appreciate kickers. They may not be the most athletic people out there, but I mean, taking the time. I mean, can I say I can kick a 30, 32, 33-yard field goal? Probably not. And there's they have a lot of pressure. Games usually on the line, stuff like that matters. Like, oh, if they made that extra point, they would have won. Question becomes now, will more and more teams go for 2 because they can't trust their kickers? I mean, back in, was it 2012? I think it was 2012 or 2013. My Packers, for example, Mason Crosby, he got the yips. More or less just missed left and right. Would make one here or there, but missed one here, but missed more than made. And it's like, come on, you're better than this. You're better than this. And then they brought in some competition in the offseason. He beat out the competition, and he just improved better and better. And I truly think Mason Crosby is one of the most is at least a top 5 kicker in the NFL. Top 10 for sure, but I think he's at least number 5 in the NFL. But anyways, this got on a little too long in my opinion on this topic, but this just shows that kickers are important. And if you don't have a good kicker, you're F. And you go for 2, like Pittsburgh, 3/4 of the time. Who needs kickers except for kicking off? So it's one of those bizarre headlines. I mean, do I really think 12 plus extra points are going to happen this weekend? I don't think so. But it just shows the valuability. I mean, the question will. I mean, last year Tampa Bay spent a 2nd-round draft pick on a kicker, and that's kind of high, because I mean, people think kickers as jokes, punters as jokes. And it's like you think that's the valuable, but anyways, moving on. Let's move on. Let's move on to another topic. Like, hey, how about Cleveland? Cleveland, they have the Cavaliers. They're current NBA champions, reigning NBA champions. The Cleveland Indians, AL champions, World Series runners-up, and the 0-11, minus 141 net points, Cleveland Browns, who are only one of 2 teams have trailed in the 4th quarter every single game so far this year. The only other team? Oh, it's the NFC North leading Detroit Lions. And they're 6-4, and Cleveland, they're 0-11. And hey, you could say some good news. Robert Griffin III, he's making a comeback. He finally practiced this past Wednesday for the first time since the opening week of the NFL season back in September 12th. And the question becomes, if he's healthy enough, do you play him? I mean, yes, you draft a quarterback. Oh, what's his name? Him. But do you really put, when Robert Griffin III gets healthy and so forth back, do you put him back in as your starting quarterback? And I say yes. Why else would you sign him? I know why you drafted the first guy. You're, you draft a quarterback because he's the future. You need time to have him develop. But he has played some, what's his name, Kruger, I think. But it's, I say you play RG3, he had a spectacular rookie season like everyone expected, but once he, blew out his knee, he has been downhill since.
Partner, I know we're in the era of the mobile quarterback, but there's still an element of
Then,
surprise
Mike Shanahan loved him.
and what a nice game
Once
on
Mike
that
Shanahan
one.
got tossed out, it was Jay Gruden's team, and Jay Gruden's like, I don't like him. But he's our quarterback, but I don't like him. Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins. But, yeah, I don't know what else to say about this. I would start RG3, give him one more shot. If he gets hurt again, then I don't know how many other teams would give him a chance. There's always the CFL, the land of opportunity. And speaking of quarterback, a few weeks ago, the Chicago Bears got Jay Cutler back. A stellar Monday night game against the Minnesota Vikings. But this past week, I think, against the New York Giants, he more or less blew out his shoulder. Has sustained a labrum tear in his throwing shoulder, which usually for a quarterback is not a good thing. Because, your arm, throw, And the question then becomes, yes, he's probably done for the season. But then what do you do with Jay Cutler? It just seems like Jay Cutler for years. If not, I believe it was when Josh McDaniels became the head coach for Denver, and he wanted to get Matt Castle, and Jay Cutler was quarterback there. Jay Cutler's like, no. If you get him, I want out. And they didn't get Matt Castle, but Jay Cutler's like, I don't want out. I don't want to be in Denver anymore. And so, okay, Denver decide to trade Jay Cutler to the Chicago Bears. And it's like, what is Denver thinking? You know what? I think I don't know what Denver traded for, but everyone thought Chicago got off. It's like, you got a quote-unquote potential up-and-comer quarterback, a potential elite quarterback if he was molded just right. But you know what? Yes, at times he can be good. He can be great. He could be an elitist, a quarterback that can, remembered. And he's sustained to be the most. I think he has played the most snaps as a Chicago Bear now. And a few years ago, it was the Chicago since '92. They compared the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears, and how the Green Bay Packers have only played two quarterbacks from '92 to 2012, and the Chicago Bears had played the most quarterbacks with I think 20 something. So Jay Cutler, from 2009 to now, he has sustained some injuries here and there, but he was consistent of staying healthy and has started the most games as a Chicago Bear. But okay, let's see. Yeah, Owner announced that request attempt trade. Okay. Cutler was traded to Chicago along with a 5th-round draft pick in the 2009 NFL Draft and Kyle Orton. In return, the Broncos received Kyle Orton and the Bears' 1st and 3rd round selection in the 2009 pick, and the Bears' 1st round in 2010. Wow. So let's just take a quick look at that draft. The Broncos drafted Robert Aries, who is currently with Tampa Bay.
They ran it really well and picked up the first down. I love
That's one of the picks they got
And a new set of downs here after picking up
in
the
that
first
trade,
on the
first
ground.
and third. So I got to skip to the third round. Do, do, do.
On the ground, it's Thompson.
From Chicago via Denver. Well,
Touchdown.
and well,
Taking it in from 11
Denver
yards
then traded to
out.
Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh drafted Mike Wallace with that other pick in 2009. And then the Broncos got Chicago's first round in 2010. So the 2010 draft pick, the 49ers got Anthony Davis because they traded with Denver, and
Now McManus to
Denver
tackle on
traded,
the
and they
extra
got
point.
from San Francisco
And it is now 21
Earl
to
Thomas. Wow. Just anyways. In the long run, I think Chicago got screwed. I mean, yes, they did win a divisional title in 2010 with Jay Cutler. They did make it to the NFC Championship game, but then he got hurt, and everyone was giving him lots and lots of heat, and his teammates did defend him, but Jay Cutler has just been a big old crying baby, in all honesty. I mean, he can be good and great when he actually tries. When he has the offensive line, he has the weapons and so forth, he has the time. He can be one of those elite quarterbacks. But consistently, he's not because of injury, his attitude, and his abilities. So, I don't know what to say. I would hope Chicago's finally done with him. Well, since I'm a Packer fan, I hope they're not. I would love to see him keep playing, but it is what it is. I think it's just time for Jay Cutler to say, call it quits and move on. And speaking of my Packers, another big news story in the NFL this week. My Packers have lost 4 straight. All the fans across the USA, and especially in the state of Wisconsin, are calling for the heads of Don Capers, the defensive coordinator, Mike McCarthy, the head coach, Ted Thompson's the general manager, and even, I think even the president of the Green Bay Packers, Inc., Mark Murphy. But I just don't see that happening. And apparently, Mark Murphy, he's disappointed, but he won't start firing people, which means, how I read it sometimes, when you can read a headline like that, means, oh, someone's going to get fired. When they say, we're not going to start firing people, oh, someone's going to get fired at the end of the year, especially if this keeps happening. I mean, they're 4-6. They're still in the NFC North. They're still in that tight race because the Vikings lost 4 in a row and finally won one. Detroit has the lead at 6-4. And they're still, 6 games to go. So anything can happen. And it's semi-reassuring to hear that Mark Murphy said, we're not going to start firing people, but something needs to happen in Green Bay. Their defense is it's just riddled with injuries. You have a bunch of young guys that are trying to step in those roles that are just not quite ready. And like Ted Thompson, he likes to build through the draft, which is fine and dandy. But then when you decide to draft those people, 4 or 5 years ago and not re-sign them and go with who you have, and they just drafted 2 years ago, they're not quite fully at speed and they're not quite veterans. And then, you have your few veteran starters, and then they get hurt. You got to throw in those free agent rookies. That doesn't equivalate into same old. I mean, I like the next man up. I mean, they wouldn't be on these NFL rosters if you didn't think they were good enough. But I mean, if the Packers played Cleveland, maybe Cleveland would get their first win. It's a little disappointing to say, but It is what it is. So I'm pretty sure some people are going to get fired. I don't think Ted Thompson. I don't think Mike McCarthy, at least this year, at the end of the season, is going to fire. The defense, if anyone gets fired, I think it should be Don Capers. They've been calling for Don Capers' head for years in Green Bay, and I think this would be the year that it happens because the defense isn't performing. It was there in the first few weeks of the season, but hasn't been since. I know injuries don't help, but Green Bay is one of the teams that have been advocating, not enough practice time. The CBA is not good enough and stuff like that. But I mean, you look at teams like at New England, Seattle,
So when you have good field position to start
Denver,
drive,
Pittsburgh,
back-to-back
they're always
sacks,
in it.
that can
They
be
have
demoralizing
more or
for
less
a
the
team.
same old people, but they don't have the same number of injuries. Green Bay, year in and year out, seems like they always have 10 to 15 injuries. 5 to 7 people on IR, if not more. The same people on the injury report week in, week out. And it's like, why are they always getting hurt? Why can't they stay healthy? Why can't we do this or that? Why? What are we doing different? And I look at, training and conditioning. What type of players and coaches do we have for that? So, it's frustrating as a Packer fan to watch games just knowing their last game they lost 42-24. And it was a close game at first until the fourth quarter, midway through the fourth, when a turnover happened and Washington start, running away with it. But I don't know.
And the offense now will try to regroup.
I know I would say yes, Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat. A few other coaches I would say on the hot seat would be, yes, Marvin Lewis from Cincinnati. I mean, he's been there for, I don't even know how many years he's been in Cincy, but he's one of the longer tenures. I mean, Mike McCarthy, he's been in Green Bay for since 2006. Marvin Lewis, he's been in he's been in Cincinnati since 2003. He's made the playoffs 6 times, 7 times? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And he has made the playoffs the last 5 years, but has not won a playoff game. None of those 7 times they've won a playoff game. 2005 was his first time. He was AFC North champions, and he lost to Pittsburgh in the wild card game. 2009, they were first in the AFC North. They made the playoffs and lost to the Jets. The following year in 2005 they went 8-8. Following year in 2009 they went 4-12. Finished dead last in the AFC North. 2011, third in the AFC North, got that final wild card spot. 9-7, lost to Houston. Next year, 10-6, second in the AFC North, lost against Houston in the wild card game. 2013, 11-5, first in the AFC North, lost to San Diego. 2014, 10-5-1. Second in the AFC North, lost to Indianapolis. And last year, 12-4, first in the AFC North, lost to Pittsburgh again in the wild card round. These are all wild card games. They have not got a first round bye. They have they haven't reached the divisional round of playoffs. They haven't won a playoff game since 1990 or something like that. So, but I mean, right now he's 3-5-1. He's made the playoffs the last 5 years. The question becomes how trustworthy are you with him? I mean, this is kind of an odd year. He's had 3 losing seasons before, 3 non-winning seasons, or 3 3 losing seasons, 3 non-winning or 500 seasons, 3 500 seasons. But then he has had 7 winning seasons. So I mean, he's more good than bad. But right now at 3-5-1, and this year he has 3 ties now in his career as an NFL head coach. How many can say that? Current head coaches. He has had four assistant coaches that have moved on to become NFL head coaches. But I know his job is probably on the line. Who knows about Jeff Fisher in Los Angeles? I mean, they have a good defense, but the offense isn't there. They should have won last week, technically, but when it mattered, it didn't happen. But the NFL is a week-to-week league. That's the fun thing. One team can be red hot and all of a sudden, lose. And be like, what's wrong with this team? They have all the great matchups and stuff like that for them to win, but they just can't win. It's like, what's wrong with them? But speaking of standings, that's what we will look at in a little bit. But I gotta take a quick pause.
Obviously, they liked his measurables, otherwise they wouldn't have brought him onto the team. Height, weight, speed, all of that. But how about what they really said? Competitiveness. That's what they really liked about him. The way he goes after the football, competes for it, and decides when it's in the air, it's his and only his.
No gain on the play there, and it'll bring up 4th down. Well, there was no blitz. That was just a draw play that, to be frank, didn't fool anybody.
Did we hear the entire stadium screaming draw? Because it felt like everybody was all over that play, and the defense won that battle.
Here's Dustin Colquitt now, as he's on to punt for Kansas City. They'll send this away into the Rocky Mountain Night, and it's a good one. And the punt over the side in the air, and the spot will be inside the 35. The Bronco offense now set to come back out onto the field, and they're coming off a 3-and-out, my friend.
I think they've got to look at that play sheet and go to a spot that they haven't gone before. Time to shake things up a little bit to try and get this offense moving.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you shake things up?
You look at what you've called before, realize it hasn't worked
Go to
so
something
well,
else.
and maybe try and find one of those special plays from one of your better players, and maybe try and hit something big and get things going in the excitement area.
They'll start out on the ground with Booker, and he'll get this up only to about
Okay, and I am back. Quick look at how the game is going. Oh, geez, Denver up 21, Kansas City nothing. It'll be interesting to see how well that stands up. But okay, quick look at the NFL standings as usual. We start off in the AFC East, and surprise, surprise, the New England Patriots at a commanding lead, 8-2, are in first place in the East. I mean, who is surprised? Not me. But the only thing that is surprising is that they're 3-2 at home. Gillette Stadium, a place that usually was you could not come in and win, is now a place of any given Sunday. But yet they did lose to Buffalo, divisional rival, with no Tom Brady, and the Seattle Seahawks, who always find a way to win. But a quick look at the rest of their schedule. They have 6 games remaining. They take on divisional rival this week, which was going to be the Sunday Night Football. The Patriots at the Jets was going to be Sunday night. I mean, they have the Jets, the Rams, the Ravens. Next 3 games, I'd say easy wins. Then they have Baltimore, or I just said Denver, Jets, and Miami. at Denver, home against the Jets, at Miami. That Miami game, I think, will be interesting because the number 2 team in the East is Miami, who has now won 5 in a row. They had a close call in Los Angeles this past week with only scoring on their last 2 possessions. Otherwise, it was like punt, interception and punt, something like that, something ridiculous. And they did not. The Rams did not play 60 minutes of football. Everyone tells you to play 60 minutes. Well, if you only play 50 or 55 minutes, you can still lose the game. And Miami, that's all Miami had to do was play only the last 5 minutes, and LA had to rely on their rookie quarterback, number 1 pick overall, to, hey, yeah, now we're down by 4. Go win it for us. It's like, huh? But quickly looking at New England's schedule, the Denver game at Denver might be a little hiccup, and maybe that Miami game. I don't think Miami's going to make a chase for the division. But here's the thing: if Denver beats New England and Miami could win out, only have those 4 losses going into the final week of the season, I don't know how if they beat New England. I mean, they lost in New England by 7 in week 2. A perfect opportunity for Miami to take advantage of a Tom Brady-less Patriots. And they couldn't. They lost by 7. Now, I'm not sure then. I think the tiebreaker would go down to divisional wins. And right now, New England is 2-1 in division. Miami's 2-1. And so that means, okay, they played 3. They have 3 more games to play in the division. If they both win their next 2 divisional games, it'd be 4-1, and it would come down to that game. And that could determine the division. That division title could be on the line week 17 between Miami and New England. And I feel Miami, I don't think Miami's quite there. Obviously, they struggled this past week, but LA at home with a good defense, give it to the home team. But Miami is a team that's on the rise. They're not quite there, but they might make a playoff push. And they could make a playoff push and force one of these 2 teams, Kansas City and Denver, out of the playoffs. But I think it might come down to week 17. These 2 teams might both make the playoffs, and the division might be on the line. It's tough to call right now, but anything's possible. But you have the Buffalo Bills. They're in 3rd place in the East at 5-5. They're still alive, but I almost would say they won't do any better than 9-7. And then you have the Jets at 3-7, -65 net points. And I'm just laughing inside. They were a game away from making the playoffs last year. They were so close of making the playoffs. And who knows? Who knew that just so close of making the playoffs would just collapse? And then there's talks and rumors of, hey, they should trade for Tony Romo. Romo would lead them to the promised land. Well, yeah, that's possible if he doesn't, crack like a Fabergé egg. But I think Miami can make a run in the East. They can put some pressure on New England. They don't play the Patriots until week 17. I gotta quickly look at Miami's remaining schedule. But I mean, for the most part, New England may lose one more game before week 17. This upcoming week, Miami plays San Francisco. in Miami. So you have a West Coast team coming to the East Coast at noon. San Francisco has actually been improving a lot. So, I mean, they might put some pressure on the Dolphins, especially how the Dolphins are playing. But if they can get that running game going, they get Jay Ajayi going, I mean, they should have no problem winning that game. Then they're at Baltimore. Who knows about Baltimore? Baltimore's up and down. One week they'll win, the other week they'll lose by 20. Arizona, same thing. But that's at home. I almost would have to give it to home team. But Miami's going to the grind with 3 straight divisional games, especially at the Jets and at Buffalo. Late December when, they're usually, 60, 70-degree weather in Miami at that time, and New York and Buffalo could be experiencing, 20 below. It's going to be tough, but I think Miami can keep this winning streak going and put some pressure on the Patriots. Excuse me. So, I think Miami just might make the playoffs. So we move on to the West, and first place. I mean, I don't know how many people saw this coming. I would almost say it was a 50-50 that they thought the Oakland Raiders, they're in first place in the West, that people thought that they would be in first place. In my predictions this year, I saw Oakland. I believe in the hype. For Oakland of, they'll have a winning record, but I didn't think they would quite make the playoffs. And here we are, 8-2. Somehow, they're just finishing games and winning. Then you have Kansas City and Denver, both 7-3. Someone's going to win. This game's not going to end in a tie. I'm going to be so mad and so upset if this game ends in a tie, because the NFL is better than this. A game should not end in a tie in the regular season anymore in a tie. But I have high hopes that this game does not end in a tie. They're both 7-3. Kansas City has a tiebreaker over Denver because of divisional ranking. My memory doesn't. I don't think they've played each other before this year. Prior to this game. Load. Because I do believe Oakland and Denver. I know Oakland plays either Denver or Kansas City the last game of the season. Yes, Kansas City and Denver have not played each other until this weekend, this Sunday night game, which I believe the NFL did the right thing to move this to prime time. I think it's going to be a little closer game at this point. I don't think it's going to be 21-3. But with 4 minutes left in the first half, I think it'll be a little lower scoring, but they play each other. They have 3 points between each other, but they play. They already have this. They play Sunday night again. They play 2 straight Sunday night games. Well, not straight. They play this Sunday night, and then on Christmas night, Christmas Day, they play on Sunday Night Football in Kansas City. But Kansas City still plays Oakland, Denver, and San Diego one more time. They don't have an easy schedule. Atlanta, Oakland, Tennessee, Denver, San Diego. In my opinion, Kansas City is on the outside looking in. How this is going. But if their defense can hold, their offense can score enough points. Denver, on the other hand,
on second down, here's Smith. To the right side, it's Kelsey.
They got Jacksonville, Tennessee, New England, Kansas City, Oakland. It's just as tough. And this is one reason why I think Miami can sneak into the playoffs, because both Kansas City and Denver have a tough stretch down the road. Because I feel Tennessee is one of those teams that is getting hot at the right time. Yes, they lost to Indianapolis this past weekend, but they're good enough to win on any given Sunday. Jacksonville against Denver, at Jacksonville, that could be a little upset. And if I had to choose between one or the other, I think I have to stick with Kansas City. I think Kansas City would make the playoffs and Denver would miss and become one of the few teams to win the Super Bowl and miss the playoffs the next year. But I mean, I think they'll end up with a winning record, though. But anything can happen. Both teams could lose out, except for these games. And of course, the San Diego Chargers, 4-6. I will truly believe that they're the best, worst team in the NFL. They have a net point of 14. They're on the plus side. They have scored more points than their opponents that they've played against. They have outscored their opponents, but yet they have lost 6 games. It's a little disappointing, San Diego. I just think, I wish I could say the same thing about my Packers, but that's not even far from the truth. They're not as good as they are, that their record says. But for San Diego, they're 3-2 at home. They're 1-4 on the road. The road has been killing them. They have not been winning on the road. So I mean, that doesn't help. Excuse me. Sorry. And I mean, San Diego might be able to make a charge late at the end, win 6 straight. And it's possible that the AFC West could have 4 teams with non-losing records, which would be impressive. Because I know I've been thinking to myself, okay, what if a division? Because NFL schedule looks like this. The 4 teams within a division play each other twice, so that's 6 games each. And if they won at home and lost on the road, everyone in the division would be 3-3. Okay, now what if they won the rest of their games? Every team in the division would be 13-3. And the sad thing is, one team would miss the playoffs, because one would win the division and the other 2, the next 2 and 3, would be wild card. But yet you have a team sitting at 13-3 that misses the playoffs, and someone probably maybe 8-8, 7-9, 9-7 makes the playoffs. Or it's plausible 3-13 makes the playoffs, because they only won their home games against their division and lost every other game. It's possible. Highly unlikely, but I would love to see that happen. Not really, but it'd be interesting to see. But okay, we move on to the AFC North. And there's just something with the North, both in the NFC and the AFC. Right now, Baltimore, they're on top of the AFC North at 5-5. They hold the tiebreaker over Pittsburgh, who's 5-5, because the head-to-head. And knowing my luck, come when they play each other again, it's because Baltimore was the home team, Pittsburgh was the away team. I feel like Pittsburgh may win the home game in that area when they play each other again. But who knows? Who knows who will win the AFC North? They're both 5-5. They're both on the plus side of the net points. Baltimore and started the season 3-0, then lost 4 in a row, but then have 1-2 and lost 1, because they just lost this past weekend. The Pittsburgh, they're 1-4 in the last 5 games, but they've played some tough opponents too, though.
And they got 29 yards there.
Hey, Kansas City, they're making some progress.
And there's a completion to Travis Kelce.
Quickly looking at Pittsburgh and Baltimore's remaining schedule. Otherwise, Cincinnati is 3-6-1 in the AFC North. They're still in it. If they win out, they would be 9-6-1. I mean, and if Baltimore and Pittsburgh both can only win 4 more games, Cincinnati would be in first place because they have 1 less loss. And then you got the Cleveland Browns, who yet aren't out of it. If they win 5 in a row, and Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore all lose out, they just might win the AFC North. I'm not positive. I'm not sure how accurate that may be. But Baltimore's remaining schedule, you have Baltimore this week, play Cincinnati. They still need to play Cincinnati twice, so I mean Cincinnati's still in it. Miami, New England, Philly, and Pittsburgh, and then Cincinnati. Woo-wee. Baltimore looks kind of tough, but I mean, Cincinnati's not playing their best ball. Pittsburgh's not playing their best ball, but it's in Pittsburgh. Philly, they're hosting Philly. Philly's up and down this year, but I mean, New England and Miami, two hot teams. Baltimore might only win 2 more games and finish 7-9. Or they might finish 4-7. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they play Indianapolis this week at Indianapolis, and you never know about the Colts. Then they host the Giants. Giants, that's another questionable team. Buffalo, at Buffalo, I almost have to give that to Buffalo. And they're at Cincinnati. Well, geez, Baltimore doesn't. Cleveland turn. Pittsburgh has to face 3 divisional teams at Cincinnati, but home and home. Baltimore, the old Colts and the new Colts at hosting Baltimore and Cleveland. So right now, they could lose those 2 games and win 4. They both could still could finish 9-7. So, for the most part, I think it's going to come down between Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Cleveland, well, they play the Giants this week at home. Then they finally have their bye. Then they play Cincinnati at Buffalo. They play San Diego and at Pittsburgh. Who knows? Who knows about Cleveland? But all I know is that they trade their first-round draft pick, I think they're foolish. But if they draft somebody just as foolish, it's stupid. Who knows about the Cleveland Browns? Then, finally, we move on to the AFC South. The window of opportunity is still open a crack across the board, except for maybe the 4th place team. But you have Houston. Houston played Oakland this past Monday night in Mexico City, and Mexico did not care for the Texans. I mean, especially when someone shined the green light on Brock Osweiler, and the opening kickoff, they were chanting a homophobic slur, which they've been fined for in FIFA. But I find that kind of funny because, a lot of people, especially in the U.S., think the U.S., and there's some out around the world, I think the U.S. is just very racist. But yet, the funny thing is, you go to another country, either in Europe, Mexico, South America, my bad. Things I've heard and so forth, since the majority of the population are the same ethnicity, they think alike. And it's like, I would say 85% is the same ethnicity, and so they think alike, and they think and feel the same way, and that could be more racist. While the U.S. is a melting pot, quote unquote, and we have multiple ethnicities. Yes, majority may still be white, but that's like 50%, 51, 50, 60%, but you still have that 40-something% that isn't, and then they get offended, and so on and so forth, and that's why you have to be careful what you say and so on and so forth. But I semi-digress. There's worse place out there when it comes to racism and violence and stuff like that outside the U.S. But anyways, Houston. The Texans are still in first place in the South at 6-4, but Indianapolis is riding their tail at 5-5. Now, without Andrew Luck this week, taking on Pittsburgh at home, and they got to start Scott Tolzien, it's not going to look easy for the Colts. The Texans, they have some breathing room, but then the Titans, they're in third place at 5-6, and Jacksonville 2-8, a team that everyone, it seemed like almost everybody, 95% of people were riding that hype train, including myself. And I should have been on the other hype train in Oakland. At 2-8, they round out the fourth place spot, and they're not quite out of it. I mean, they can finish strong at 8-8, but it's going to be tough. But when it comes down to Houston, Indianapolis, and Tennessee, in all reality, I like Tennessee making a push. They have 5 games left. Rest of the division has 6. I mean, Houston this week plays San Diego. Then they're at Green Bay, at Indianapolis. They host Jacksonville, host Cincinnati, and then they're at Tennessee. San Diego's going to be a little, it depends on which San Diego team shows up. They go to Green Bay, where their one previous trip, they are undefeated. And Green Bay's playing like crap. Then they go to Indianapolis, divisional rivalry, and that's going to be tough. Jacksonville, they should beat them. Cincinnati, that might be an easy win, especially them. But Tennessee is my wild card here in the South, and might just pull out and get a victory and win the South. The Colts, especially if the Colts do not have their quarterback in Andrew Luck, they're kind of it. Pittsburgh, the Jets, Houston, Minnesota, Oakland, Jacksonville, Oakland, Pittsburgh, even at Minnesota. That's 3 games that they could easily lose, the Colts. And if they're 5-5 right now, that's 5-8. They could finish 8-8. Houston, like I was saying before, 1, 2, 3. They could win 3 and be 8-5. They could be 8-8. Tennessee, though, on the other hand, they have Chicago this week at Chicago. Chicago sucks. Then they have their bye, but they have Denver and Kansas City back to back. Ooh. And then Jacksonville and Houston, and that's 3 more wins as well. And at 5-6, 3 more wins. That's 8 wins, and we could see an 8-8 champion in the South. And then Jacksonville's 2-8, but get started in the NFC in just a little bit.
So both teams have their marching orders, and we'll get going again here in quarter number 3. That's fielded in the end zone. And no run back here. This will be a touchback, and it comes out to the 25-yard line. Here comes the Chiefs offensive unit as they'll have it to begin quarter number 3. They have the ball here for the inaugural drive of the second half. Pretty big deficit, though. We'll see what adjustments were made in that locker room.
And I never want to make something more important than it actually is, right? I don't want create more hype than what is there. But this is I'm doing it though. This is a really important drive, and we often talk about teams scripting plays to start a game. A lot of them script to start the second half too, and they're scripting something that they expect to get them into the end zone and back into this game.
Let's see if that script is a good one for them. They'll give it to him right up the gut. Officially no gain on the play, and it's second down.
No gain on that run, and while this team is down, they're not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe you just have to think about different style of running in order to get this guy going.
Here's Smith now on second down. It's complete to Chris Conley. They give him 14 yards that time and a fresh set of downs.
Okay, well, let's take a quick look. Okay, Denver's up 21-10. Start of the second half, and Kansas City's got the ball. They're still in it. And speaking of still in it, the NFC. Starting off in the East, and boy, oh boy, I don't know if there's any other hot team, or I don't know about well-rounded. Offensively, yes, their defense hasn't cracked, but you have the Dallas Cowboys with the best record in the National Football League at 9-1. I mean, who would have thought two rookies would be carrying this? I mean, we all knew Dallas was a running back away from being great. I mean, you go back to the 2014 season, they finished what 12-4, I do believe. And you know, last year when they let DeMarco Murray walk away, which I felt was a big mistake. You know, Romo gets hurt, and they're, you know, in neck deep. They finished what, 5-11, 4-12 last year, and now look at them, a rookie running back, rookie quarterback, and they're 9-1. Who saw this coming? I did think, after watching the preseason and hearing all the hype, I did think Dallas would make the playoffs, win the East. Because the East last year was kind of crappy, and it's like, who's going to win the East? But I don't think anybody really expected them to be 9-1 at this point. Especially like, oh no, Tony Romo, he's hurt again. But Dak Prescott, who would have thought? You know, like, okay, 0-1 to start the season. Close game, poor clock management. But then, oh, okay, we're 1-1. Got back on the winning way. 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, and 9-1. It's like, holy moly. I think everyone was questioning, is their defense good enough? We all know the offense is, but how good is their defense? Is their defense good enough? Well, apparently their defense is good enough. And the funny question becomes, who deserves MVP and deserves Rookie of the Year? Is Zeke Elliott or Dak Prescott? MVP goes to that offensive line, because if it wasn't for that offensive line, both Ezekiel Elliott wouldn't find those holes and Dak Prescott wouldn't be standing up straight. So, looking at the rest of their schedule, they play Thursday, Thanksgiving. I mean, against Washington. Washington, they're fighting for playoff. They have the 6th seed at the moment in the NFC, and they lost first time round, week 2 in the week 2 of the NFL season against these Cowboys in DC, just by 4 points. So close game. I mean, Washington, they're going to come and be ready to play. Then at Dallas the following Thursday night, or at Minnesota, my bad. At Minnesota the following Thursday night. This ain't the same Minnesota team, but that started the season. But it is in Minnesota, and if that defense is ready to play, they just might get to Zeke and Dak. at New York, the only team that's beaten them so far this year. I'm pretty sure the Cowboys are going to be ready for some revenge. But Tampa Bay, Detroit, and Philly, they're going to finish strong with those 3 games and probably easy wins. So worst case scenario, 12-4. Best case scenario, 15-1 for Dallas. But then the real test becomes is, will the playoffs get to them? Will the playoffs get to Ezekiel Elliott and Dak and that pressure? Whole different ball game once the playoffs start. Oh, the Giants. They're in second place in the NFC East and holder of the first wild card. They don't have a too bad of a schedule. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Dallas, Detroit, Philly, Washington, but it's at Cleveland, at Pittsburgh, at Philly, and at Washington. So kind of a few hiccups. Even if they lost those 4 games, if they lost those 4 games, it'd be and won the other 2, 9-7. That's not looking good. But in the NFC, it'll look good for a playoff record. And Washington at 6-3-1. They are the 3rd place team in the NFC East, and the Philadelphia Eagles 5-5. Not so bad. Washington, just quickly jump back to them. Their remaining schedule. Dallas they play 3 straight road games at Dallas, at Arizona, at Philly, but Carolina, at Chicago, and New York. Ooh, it's going to be a tough stretch for Washington, but who knows. We move on to the NFC West, and one of the teams I just hate. I won't hide it. I'll express it. I just don't feel like they're not as good as their record says. I feel like they're worse, but in the end result, as long as they get the W, a win's a win, I guess. But there's where 60 minutes of play don't matter to them. It's just how many points they can score at the end. The Seattle Seahawks in the West at 7-2-1. They more or less have this division wrapped up. They're 5-0 at home, 2-2-1 on the road. They've won 3 straight, and I don't think anyone else in their division is going to catch up to them. Arizona 4-5-1 is in second place. Los Angeles 4-6. And, of course, the San Francisco 49ers, who started the season at 1-0. Unlike the Dallas Cowboys, who started the season 0-1, have done the opposite of the Cowboys since week 1 and lost 9 straight. But they have looked decent in the last few weeks, but it doesn't matter to look decent. It matters if you have the W or the L, and they have had the L the last 9 weeks. But quickly looking at Seattle and Arizona's schedule, it's going to be tough for Arizona to make that playoff push. I feel like Arizona's playoff hopes are done. It's possible to still make the playoffs via a wild card, but they have to finish strong. Seattle, they play at Tampa Bay. Late game. They host Carolina on Sunday Night Football at home. Then they travel to Green Bay. And, hey, you never know. Maybe Seattle gets a little too cocky against the Packers, and the Packers beat them, who suck right now. Then they host LA. They host Arizona. 2 teams that they could not win earlier at their place. And then they're at San Francisco, the end of the season, with some some fruity drinks, and win the NFC West and maybe be the second best team in the division, in the conference. Arizona on the flip side, they're at Atlanta. They host Washington. They're at Miami. They host New Orleans. They're at Seattle, at LA. Just looking at that, Arizona's done. So, looks right now the West, Seattle. Seattle at 7-2-1. I don't know how they don't make the playoffs, how they don't win the division. And Arizona, I don't know what happened. I really don't.
No one fooled. Quarterback was hit.
Ooh, nice sack by, is that Miller? Probably. 4th and 15. Still only down by 11 with 7:20 left in the third. Kansas City still has plenty of time. But we move on to the NFC North. The division, to me, that matters the most. Because, you know, I can't deny and show my bias and of the NFC North. I'm a huge Packer fan, but I try to look neutral when it comes to games, especially as late when, you know, the Packers can't win. But anyways, we start first place. First place, the Detroit Lions are in first place of the NFC North and looking for their first divisional title since, I think, 91. Or was it 93 to be honest? When the North used to be the Central. Let's see, the last time Detroit won a divisional title was 1993. Woo. So that's what now? If 23 years ago? Roughly 23 years ago since Detroit has won division. I mean, since then, well, it's been either Green Bay, Minnesota, or Chicago. Throw in Tampa Bay when Tampa Bay used to be in the Central. But Detroit's in first place in the North. They've made the playoffs a handful of times between now and since the North was created. 2011, 2014 were the last two times they were wild card teams and made the playoffs. But Detroit at 6-4 and a +6 on the net points. They've been trailing in the fourth quarter all 10 games. But the only thing that matters is that they've won 6 of those. Minnesota, they are 6-4 as well after losing 4 straight and finally last week getting a win. Finally getting a win and keeping pace with Detroit. They're both 6-4, but Detroit has that tiebreaker. In third place in the North, my shitty Green Bay Packers, which I will cheer until the very end of my life. I don't care how good, how bad, or how great they'll be. I'll still cheer them on. But they're at 4-6, and in all honesty, they're still in it. I mean, if Detroit and Minnesota play each other this Thanksgiving, this Thursday, if Minnesota would win and Green Bay somehow finds a way to win on Monday night, they would move up. No, they wouldn't move up. They'd still be a game behind who's ever in second place, but they would narrow the gap by a game or so, 2 games still. And Chicago at 2-8 is in fourth place. And here's the irony. You look at the last 5 games of all 4 teams in the NFC North. Detroit is 4-1. So what is that telling you? They're the hot team right now. Minnesota, Green Bay, and Chicago, they're all 1-4, with Green Bay losing 4 straight. And more or less possibly losing their 5th straight game. It's just, But look, okay, Detroit, their remaining schedule, like I said, they play Minnesota this Thursday, Thanksgiving, gobble gobble. Then they're at New Orleans. New Orleans, I know the Saints aren't the best team in the world right now, but still, it's a hard place to play and a hard place to win. Is that Superdome. But then they host Chicago. And here is where Detroit might stumble. They're at New York and at Dallas, weeks 15 and 16. those two teams are going to be fighting hard to stay in the playoffs. Dallas, they probably will already have a playoff spot clinched by then, come week 16. And then they host Green Bay, and I'm sure Detroit has been looking for that home game since last year. Since that Hail Mary, Rodgers to Rodgers, they've been waiting for that game. They lost earlier the year to Green Bay at Lambeau after they finally won at Lambeau last year for the first time in like half a century. So Detroit does not have an easy schedule come down the stretch, especially those 3 road games. And you never know how Chicago, they play 3 divisional games and 3 road games come the second half of this season, or the last 6 games. So Detroit, you never know. They always know how to lose, it seems like. Never win out. Minnesota, their remaining opponents, Detroit, already said that. Then they host Dallas. This might be a little spark for them. But then they travel to Jacksonville. Jacksonville, I don't know. I would think I would have picked Minnesota in that game, and that's a hard one for me to say. Then Indianapolis, they host Indianapolis. Same thing. If Andrew Luck's back, you know what? I'd pick the Colts in that one. Then they go to Green Bay on Christmas Eve. I mean, how the Packers are playing, how healthy they may be, that could be an easy win for Minnesota. I mean, they won there last year, and then they host Chicago, who beat them in Chicago. They're at the new U.S. Bank Stadium. Who knows? Chicago, they have nothing to play for, and Minnesota will have everything to play for. So I mean, same thing. They could win 3 and lose 3, and that would put both of them at 9-7. And then you have my Green Bay Packers, who are still in it. They're still slightly in it somehow. I don't know how, but they are. But I would think if they lose this Monday night against Philly at Philadelphia, Green Bay does not have a favorable schedule. They're at Philly. They've lost 4 in a row to begin with. They're at Philly. That's probably going to be their 5th. They play Houston at Green Bay. You know what? That's probably, 6 in a row. Lost 6. They'll be, 4 and 8. Then they host Seattle. How the hell are they supposed to beat Seattle that somehow Seattle always finds a way to win? They'll be 4 and 9. They go to Chicago. They beat Chicago earlier, but since they're on the road, they might still lose, but they might, they might get a win there. So, 5 and 9, then, lose to Minnesota and lose to Detroit, finish 5 and 11. I mean, their offense is just fine, it seems like. They can still score. They know how to score. Green Bay's offense knows how to score, but their defense does not know how to stop anybody. Maybe the first 3 or 4 or 5 drives of the game, but after that, no. It's done. They're too tired, and they need oxygen and shit like that. So, I think right now, I'm rooting for Detroit just because I hate Minnesota. I hate them more than Chicago just because Minnesota's been a heated rivalry more than Chicago has. I have mutual respect for Chicago as a Packer fan than I do for Minnesota. And Detroit's been those lovable losers. But we move on to the NFC South. NFC South is not quite over. There's still a possible chance, and there's a race for the South. Atlanta, right now, is 6-4 in the South. The only one that has positive on net points. They just had their bye. They're well rested. They have a 6-game stretch to go then at 6-4. Tampa Bay, they're right behind Atlanta at 5-5. They are just trying to find a way to, maybe sneak into the playoffs with a win or something like that. But New Orleans and Carolina, they're both 4 and 6 in that order. New Orleans is -1 in net points, and Carolina is -2 in net points, which is kind of funny to me. It's kind of funny. But Atlanta, their last 6 opponents, Arizona, Kansas City, at Atlanta, so at Los Angeles, San Francisco, that's a win. At Carolina, divisional rival on the road. And then the New Orleans Saints at home. I give, let's see, 1, 2, 3, at least 3 more wins for sure. So that's 9 and 7 if they lose the other 3. Tampa Bay on the other hand. Seattle, that's a loss. San Diego, at San Diego, I'll go with San Diego. So that's 2 more losses. They host New Orleans, give them a win there. But at Dallas, no. At New Orleans, yeah. Carolina, sure. So that's 3. That's 8 and 8. Tiebreaker goes to Atlanta. So it's a tough one. Tough one to see and have confidence.
But when you're able to successfully move him, you're often able to get some yardage. That's when linebackers have to clean up and make tackles.
Excuse me. So the South is still a close race, but I gotta give it to Atlanta. So, but if the playoffs were held today, if for some reason say, hey, the NFL decide, hey, there's no point of playing the rest of the games, we're going to cancel Thanksgiving, we're going to cancel the rest of the season, here are the teams, and we're going to start the playoffs today. Here are the teams. In the AFC, the Oakland Raiders, who may be soon the Vegas Raiders, are in first place in the AFC and will have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And winners of the West. And the Patriots, the New England Patriots, will be number 2 and winners of the East. The 3rd seed, the Houston Texans, the winners of the South, and the 4th seed, the Baltimore Ravens, the winners of the North. While the Kansas City Chiefs would have to play the play the Ravens, and the Broncos would have to play the Texans, the 5th and 6th seeds respectively. Well, on the NFC side, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, best record in the NFL at 9-1, they would have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and everyone would be like, how about those Cowboys? They would be the winners of the East. Seattle at 7-1, they would be the winners of the West and the 2nd seed in the NFC. And it just boggles my mind, just like how it boggles my mind how Patriots stay relevant as just like the Seahawks. Here's a little interesting part though. Detroit, 6-4 would be the 3rd seeds and the 3rd seed and the winners of the North. While Atlanta, who is also 6-4, would be the winners of the South and the 4th seed. And then the New York Giants would take on Atlanta, and the Redskins would take on Detroit as the 5th and 6th seeds respectively. So they always say, what, 6 teams? At least 6 teams. Six new teams always make the playoffs every year. So that would be New York, Dallas, Detroit, Atlanta, Oakland. No, Houston made it. And I think it'd be Baltimore. So yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams. So, but enough of that. Let's move on to the games that are happening this week. For the first time since week 3, 16 games. 16 games will happen this week. Week 13, though, will be the last week of byes, which I think is ridiculous. But there are 16 games. Every team, all 32 teams will play this week. 3 will be on Thanksgiving this Thursday.
Finding time.
The rest will be on Sunday, besides the Monday night game, the one Monday night game. That's it. The 12 games on Sunday and one on Monday night. So here are the games that are happening. Thursday, we have Minnesota at Detroit, Washington at Dallas, and Pittsburgh at Indianapolis for our Thursday Thanksgiving action. On Sunday, we have Arizona at Atlanta, Jacksonville at Buffalo, Tennessee at Chicago.
On 1st and 10, Smith.
Excuse me.
The
The New York Football Giants at Cleveland, San Francisco at Miami, the Los Angeles Rams at New Orleans, Cincinnati at Baltimore, San Diego at Houston. In the late games, we have Seattle at Tampa Bay, Carolina at Oakland, New England at the New York Jets. Sunday Night Football, my game of the week, Kansas City at Denver. And Monday Night Football, the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles.
7 yards there, good enough to move the sticks.
Last week, I stayed on the plus side and going 9-5, and I'm hoping to keep my positive streak going heading into week 12. So we start with Thursday, gobble gobble, Thanksgiving action, Minnesota and Detroit. When Detroit went to Minnesota earlier this year, they handed them their 4th straight loss, I do believe, and won. Detroit has won 3 straight on Thanksgiving. Minnesota, I think they got away with an easy one against playing Arizona last week. So that's why I'm picking Detroit. Detroit knows how Minnesota plays and vice versa. But since Detroit is the home team, they have won 3 straight on Thanksgiving. I gotta go with the Lions. And I think the Lions will win the North and finally get maybe some respect that they deserve. The afternoon game, Washington at Dallas. I think this. I think we might see an upset in the making. With Dak and Ezekiel, they're both like, piece of cake, we've won 9 straight. But you know what? I'm going with an upset here. I think Washington, they only lost by 4 week 2. That was week 2. That was ages ago. I think Washington will get the upset against Dallas on Thanksgiving. Not saying Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott will think it's too big, it's Thanksgiving and so forth, but maybe just that short week isn't good enough. I mean, Washington had less time to prepare because they played Sunday night this past week. But I gotta go with Washington. That's my upset, more or less, for this week. Washington over Dallas, and Washington makes that little inch effort of making the playoffs. Thursday Night Football, Pittsburgh at Indianapolis. With Andrew Luck out, Pittsburgh struggling to stay at 500 in that AFC North race. I just don't see Scott Tolzien, a Wisconsin Badger alum, decent quarterback, leading the Colts to victory. But if he does and looks amazing, we might just have a quarterback controversy in Indianapolis. But I don't see that happening. Pittsburgh with Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger, and Le'Veon Bell, who the 3 of them combined have won how many Super Bowls? None? But anyways, Pittsburgh wins. We move to Sunday. Arizona at Atlanta. Arizona, their woes just continue. And I believe Atlanta, one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL, especially at home, keeps on winning. And I go with Atlanta. Hot Atlanta. Jacksonville at Buffalo. To be honest, this is a tough one. I mean, according to Yahoo, they think Buffalo has a 97% chance of winning and Jacksonville has a 3% chance. But I think it might be just a little bit closer than that. But since Buffalo is the home team, I do feel like they are the better team, and Jacksonville just, plainly sucks. I will stick with Buffalo, but I feel like it's going to be at least a one-possession game because it just has that making of an upset of Jacksonville might just find a way to win. But I'm going to stick with Buffalo. I think Buffalo will get the victory since they're the home team. Tennessee at Chicago. Chicago, I think they're better off without Jay Cutler. And Tennessee, yes, they lost to Indianapolis, but I do believe that was at Indy last week. So Tennessee just has a great running game. Marcus Mariota just might be one of those future elite quarterbacks in a few years, but right now, not quite. So I'm going with Tennessee. I love DeMarco Murray. I truly feel DeMarco Murray is, if not the most elite running back in the NFL, he is a top 3 running back in the NFL right now. He just needs that front 5 to make some holes. Because if he does not have good holes, he can't make those great runs, but yet when he does, he's awesome at it. So Tennessee over Chicago. New York Football Giants at Cleveland. Do I really have to tell you who I'm going here? I mean, Cleveland is going to join the 2008 Detroit Lions as the only teams to go an entire season winless. Or I should say 0-16, and join also the 76 Tampa Bay Buccaneers as the 3 winless teams. Cleveland. The only way you're going to win, I think, Cleveland, is if a team forfeits. But the New York Football Giants, they had they win. They might be a team in the playoffs where if Dallas and New York play each other in the playoffs, I almost would have to rely on the Giants in that game. I don't really care for Eli Manning, but do I feel like Eli is elite? Can you spell elite without Eli? No, you can't, but anyways, the football Giants over Cleveland. End of discussion. San Francisco at Miami, which is a noon game. A West Coast team is traveling to the East Coast to take on the Dolphins. Dolphins struggled at the LA Coliseum, but since now they are at home, they will adjust to their time zone and to their rhythm, and they will take care of business in San Francisco. But I will add, I would not be surprised if San Francisco pulls out the upset. I think this will be at least a one-possession game at the end. But Miami comes out away with the victory. But I gotta go with Miami in that one. The Dolphins, I believe, are a better team. They might have not shown it last week, but they are the better team. The Rams, LA Rams at the New Orleans Saints. Tough one to pick for sure. The Rams have a good defense. They've shown it all year round. But Jared Goff, he should have gotten his first career win last year.
They'll put 2 receivers left, 2 to the right.
But I think since the Saints are at home in the Superdome, I have to go with the Saints, the home team. 9 times out of 10, I would go with the home team if it's a tough game to call. But I go with the Saints. LA Rams, they still need to find their identity. They need to shape their quarterback. I don't know about Jared Goff. I know Carson Wentz. He can be a great quarterback down the road. But Rams, they lose the Saints in New Orleans. AFC North battle, Cincinnati, the Bungles versus the Ravens at Baltimore. This would be a defining moment in the AFC North this year. And since the Ravens are the home team, I got to go with Baltimore. Baltimore gets the W. Cincinnati gets their woes. Marvin Lewis is back. It gets a little bit closer to the exit door. But in all honesty, I don't think Marvin Lewis would get fired. San Diego at Houston. Woo! I will keep on saying this till the end of the season, that San Diego is the best, worst team in the NFL. Their record does not equate how good they are. They just don't know how to end games. That's how I should put it. And at Houston's like the same way. And I think San Diego's going to go into Houston, get the W. Melvin Gordon and Phillip Rivers and company will march into Houston and say, Brock Osweiler and company, Javanian Clowney, what's that idiot's name? You suck. We're better than you, and we're going to kick your butt. If the Texans had J.J. Watt, different story, I would say. But San Diego goes into Houston, pulls off the upset, and gets the W. Oh, then we head to the late games on Sunday. Seattle at Tampa Bay. I would be shocked if Tampa Bay could pull the upset against Seattle. But unfortunately, Seattle's going to win this game against Tampa Bay. Seattle's going to go into Tampa Bay and be like, we just do our thing. And they take care of business and so on and so forth. So Seattle over Tampa Bay like that. Carolina at Oakland. Interesting game. Carolina has had momentum on their side. They've been winning a few games. But Oakland is one of the better teams in the AFC, only that they know how to win. They know how to close out games and get the W when it matters. Carolina, defending NFC champions, they just can't get the win. But the sad thing is, no, I think I was going with upset. I'm changing that. Oakland is the better team. Cam Newton, a whining crybaby for the most part of his career when he loses. Now, I will agree with him that the referees are being biased. They're not throwing flags when they should have. When he gets hit while he's in the pocket, when, there's been less, what's the word I'm looking for? Where, like, someone just gets their little pinky, touch the helmet of the quarterback, and there's a flag. Cam Newton, it could be a direct helmet-to-helmet guy at 90-degree angle aiming for Cam Newton's head, and the refs be like, I didn't see anything. So, but Oakland beats Carolina at home and keeps their lead in the AFC West. Moving on, New England at the New York Jets. I mean, really? The Jets suck. They probably going to be starting Pence. New England with Tom Brady at quarterback. Yeah, sure, they'll be Gronkless, but they still got Martellus Bennett, James White, LeGarrette Blount. Who else do I have to list off? Julius Edelman, Amendola. I mean, it's the Patriots and it's the Jets. Who's going to win? Patriots. And then we move on to Sunday Night Football. We have a close game here. It's 8-point difference at the 2-minute warning. KC is down by 8. But, I mean, I like Kansas City. I might have to change my pick because they got upset against Tampa Bay at home. But divisional rivalry, they know what's on the line. I'm going to stick with Kansas City here. I think Kansas City can get the upset in Denver. But if they don't win this week, when they play each other again in a few weeks at Kansas City, I got to stick with Kansas City there. Excuse me. But I got to go with Kansas City. I think Kansas City is the better team than Denver. It's going to be tough. I feel like both teams will make the playoffs. Oh, come on, Casey. You can't do shit like that. You got to hurry up. And finally, the one game I really don't want to pick. Green Bay at Philadelphia. As a huge Packer fan, I would pick Green Bay day in and day out. But since they've lost 4 in a row, last week I did not pick the Packers because I said 2 weeks ago if they lost again, I would pick against them. And I did. I went with Washington. And, of course, I got that pick right. So what matters most to me is it getting the picks right or picking my team? Sadly, it's getting the picks right. And, oh, my goodness. Kansas City. Oh my gosh. But going back to the Green Bay Philadelphia pick, this is a tough one for sure. But since Green Bay is on the road, Green Bay's defense, they have no defense. They have like 5 defensive linemen, or like 3 defensive linemen and 2 linebackers, if that. And that's it. They got no cornerbacks. They got no middle or outside linebackers. And no defense to cover crap. Their offense, they can score. They can move the ball up and down, so forth, what matters. But you know, if you get a fumble or interception, you know, so on and so forth. But make a long story short, I'm going to pick Philadelphia. I just can't trust my Packers. Oh, and speaking of not trusting, there was Denver getting to Kansas City. But I'm going to pick Philly over Green Bay. And until Green Bay's defense proves me wrong otherwise, I don't think I'm going to pick Green Bay the rest of the season. Their defense needs to tell me otherwise, that they're better than they say they are. Excuse me. But I'm going with Philly. So, those are my picks. I'm hoping I can go a perfect 16-0. Probably won't. I never will. But you never know. So let's watch. We got a minute 33 left. Kansas City has all 3 timeouts. They're down by 2. They had a chance to tie it. The 2-point conversion did not work. So, ooh, nice tackle at the 19, 20-yard line. KC needs to force the Denver Broncos a 3-and-out. They'll have to burn all 3 timeouts. Denver will probably. This is always a sticky situation when you're the winning team and you're down and you're ahead by less than a possession. Because, you know, you need to run out the clock. You know, Denver has a minute 30 left. You know they need to run out the clock. They need to get a first down. But do you throw the ball at all? Do you risk throwing the ball at all? And of course they don't here. And ooh, they give up 7. You know, Kansas City calls timeout, which is typical. And it's for me when my team say their opponent has all 3 timeouts, they need to get the first down, which is crucial. It's tough. It's always that tough decision of throwing the ball, because like if you don't, you leave so much time on the clock. But if you do complete and get the first down, it's like it pays off. It's like great move. But if it doesn't, it's like, how stupid are they? They should have ran the ball, blah, blah, blah. Oh, here we go. So 2nd and 3 with 1:25 left. Kansas City needs to make a stop, and they do. Oh, loss of 2. And since they're only down by 2, they only need a field goal for the win. This.
So a defensive timeout, chance to regather.
Well, at least the timeouts are shorter than in the real game, because if they call timeout, they would have went to the commercial break. At least 1 minute to 2, it seems like. It's like, oh, god damn, just hurry up, get back to the game. We want to see the rest of this game. So big 3rd down for Kansas City right here. Only 1 timeout remaining, 1:22. If Denver gets the first down, it's over. It's over. Because Kansas City will probably waste their last timeout, and Denver just needs to take 2 to 3 knees. So they need the stop right here. Big 3rd down for Kansas City. And of course they run the ball one more time, and oh, he stopped. Timeout Kansas City, so they'll get the ball back with at least 1:15 probably. 1:15, 1:12. So nearly.
As we step aside.
So Kansas City will have one last shot for a win. So 4th and 2 at their own 28-yard line. And Denver has to punt the ball. We'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, I picked Kansas City. I think Kansas City is going to walk away with the victory. I think they are the better team than Denver. I'm not saying that Kansas City has the better quarterback. I just say Kansas City has the better defense. So here we go. Punt. Good punt. Deep punt at their own 20, up to 30, 35, 37-yard line. So with 1:11 left in the game, no timeouts. Denver needs to prevent Kansas City from getting into field goal range. And that's easier said than done. But both teams have, I would say, grade A caliber defenses. I'm hoping this is a close, fun game to watch. And I think the NFL did the right thing to flex this into Sunday night. So here we go. Play action. Alex Smith, he's under pressure and he's sacked. He can't, Kansas City can't afford that. Now they got hurry up to the off line. 2nd and 15. Wide receivers are huffing and puffing back to the line of scrimmage. Shotgun. Plenty of time. Throws it. Oh, wide open. The tight end. He gets to the 41. They have to hurry up. Spiking the ball is always a questionable thing to do, but that's, yep, they're formed up to spike the ball. So it'll be 2nd and 11. 2nd and 10 at the 41. I suppose incomplete pass. It's not. I don't know why I was thinking that, but so 2nd and 10 at the 41-yard line. Oh, if they had to try a field goal, that'd be 51, 58-yarder. They at least got to get 5 to 10 more yards. But, oh, why would they run it? Why would you run it with 30 seconds left? Why Kansas City?
Now they're staring at a 3rd and 8 situation. Looking to speed things up here, going with some tempo.
Oh my gosh. He has plenty of time. Oh.
Kelsey, left side. And he'll be inside inside the 35,
They have
at the 34-yard line.
They have 15 seconds and no timeouts. They have to rush their field goal unit out there. What the heck with 10 seconds?
Yeah, hoping he
There's
can
no
break
way.
some
There's
tackles
no
there,
time.
but he
The
couldn't
game's
do it.
over. They're going to lose. Unless they're going 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, they get the kickoff.
In a big spot here. This from 51 yards.
It's good.
for the win.
Oh my gosh.
Back from this one a moment. No matter who's on the field, it's
I
always
mean,
tough to come in here and beat a team that's the defending champs.
unbelievable.
Weren't they 10-0
Unbelievable that
Include the playoff
as
game,
the,
no regular
Kansas
season.
City is stopped in the field of play with 10 seconds to go. And they, or 15 seconds to go, they rush their field goal unit out on the field and they get the kickoff. So final 22, the 21. I mean, I do think Kansas City is going to win, but we'll see. We'll see. That's an incredible ending, I will say. Otherwise, you know, here are the quick highlights. I mean, Denver got a block punt for return for a touchdown, a pick six, return for a touchdown, one offensive touchdown. There's the touchdown, late touchdown by KC. So, otherwise, you know, I like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. You know, hopefully you had a good one. Take her easy. Enjoy the weekend. And I say, if the game does end like it does with this one, it'd be an incredible one. So, we'll see if Madden can improve, finally get over the hump, get plus 500 for the first time all year. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and see you next week.